Maya, serious conversation really quick. Something that is important to mental health and just sort of wellness altogether is the importance of having an honest conversation. And last year I started a podcast where I made an entire episode based on a couple of scenarios that happened in the past year for me where it was necessary to live with no regrets and strengthen a couple of relationships to have uncomfortable, honest conversations. When I was little, and my family and I used to go on road trips, not super far, maybe 5 hours max, I used to throw up every single time. Like gagging, actual vomit, every plane, car, every type of transportation we went on, I would throw up. And that's the same kind of feeling, that nauseous, like dizzy, lightheaded feeling that I get before I have an honest conversation. And so tonight I want to go over some just like pointers and things that could help a conversation that you're gonna have with a loved one or a family member to make things go a little more smoothly, since most of us aren't super great at communicating, even though it's something that is so traditional to our nature. If you're the person who is leading the conversation and you want to bring up something to someone in your life that's bothering you, that feels heavy on your chest, that you just want to clear the air basically, it's important to schedule it into your calendar. So actually writing down a date and a time to have the conversation, approach it to them in a way that doesn't hype it up. So you don't want to say like, we're gonna sit down and have this super intense conversation. Chances are they might know, they might have a good idea that something along the lines of an important topic is gonna come up. But you want to make sure you don't hype it up too much so that they exaggerate it in their head, and it makes it so that they're coming at the conversation with ego and arrogance, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So schedule it, approach them with it, but act casual in your approach. Don't act like you're gonna have this big brawl or sit down. The next thing as the leader of the conversation is that you don't want to go in with expectations. When you expect the other side to respond in the exact way that you want them to or you intend them to, that can only create letdown, because chances are they're not going to respond great. And on the odd chance they do, let it be a welcomed surprise, something that you don't necessarily go in expecting from them. I think a lot of times that's where we mess up when we are in a relationship with fill in the blank, anyone in our lives, is we expect them to be a certain way, and so we keep painting them out to be that way, whether it be good or bad. And when they go outside of that box, we feel disappointed personally, something that has to do with ourselves and not so much the other person. So going in with no expectations in any relationships and or conversations is going to save you a whole lot of headache, and just let it be what it is. The next thing is, and this is one of the hardest things, like out of all the tips and pointers that we're talking about tonight, is to keep emotion out of the question. If you're anything like me, I'm a softie, and so when I bring up something uncomfortable, and I've had many conversations, even in the last year alone, that have been this way, I tend to only have one height of emotion, which is to cry. I get if I'm upset or frustrated or mad or anxious, it comes out in tears. And to prevent myself from having that during a conversation, sometimes I can't, sometimes it's completely unavoidable, but to try my best to avoid it, I will take a deep breath from my diaphragm. So I'll sit up nice and tall, I'll kind of breathe into my gut, almost like if someone were to punch you in the gut. It's kind of like a ugh kind of feeling. And so that's where I take a deep breath from, because it helps me to center and ground myself in who I am as a person and the message I want to get across, because it's more important that I get this message across than get upset. I know I can get upset later on when I'm on my own, and chances are the other side is less likely to respond in a negative way when you can hold your composure together. The best way that I learned to navigate this, and again, I'm not perfect, but the best way that I've been able to overcome this in many ways is to be forced into a conversation where the other side could not handle tears. And for me personally, that was in college. My professor would not let us go into his office upset, so we had to get our composure first and then go in. And from that, I developed a pretty strong foundation to not get upset visibly in front of other people or in front of people that are important to me having this conversation with. Now let's talk about being on the receiving end. I think we all know how it feels to be on the leading end versus the receiving end, and equal parts are important. And to be on the receiving end, number one, I think getting hit with a conversation like this, whether you anticipate it or not getting offended from your ego is the best way to receive a conversation like this. So not taking it as the person hates you because they're bringing it up, but taking it as a, wow, they really respect me enough to bring this to my attention. I'm going to do better from now on. And that leads right into the next tip, which is to give a sincere apology, and not a garbage apology of, I'm sorry you feel that way, because I don't know about you, but that's the quickest way to get punched in the face. No, I'm just kidding. Maybe. But when you give that empty apology, you're not actually taking responsibility for what you did wrong or responding in a way that wasn't what the other person thought it should be or would benefit best from. Saying I'm sorry you feel that way is basically taking the blame off of you. And not that the blame has to be pointed one way or the other, but taking blame out of the equation as a whole, accepting what the person across from you is asking, and promising to do better, to clean up your act, to not disrespect you in whatever way they are, is the most beneficial and influential way that you will get out of that conversation. And more importantly, strengthen your relationship as a whole. I don't know many people who have honest and difficult conversations who don't truly care about each other, because it's very easy to walk away, whether it's a significant other, a parent, a child, a working relationship. And so when someone's bringing this thing to your attention, it's in your best interest to listen attentively and not be distracted, not be on your phone fishing for documents on the table or whatever it is, and to not only say you're gonna do better, but act in a way that reflects exactly what you promise to perform better at. Okay, so while we're sitting on our cozy little couch, which is not even my couch, but it's cozy enough that I would consider it a couch I would get in a house, there was a situation that happened to me personally 2 years ago. So I have been a physical therapist assistant in my day job for 4 years. 2 years into my career, my boyfriend and I were working for the same company that we do now. It's a small business outpatient therapy company. We currently both had 2 students. So these 2 girls from the college we went to were shadowing us every day. And Tony is sort of the second in command at our clinic. So he was out getting lunch and I was with the 2 students at our clinic. And this grumpiest old man, sorry if you're watching this, I don't mean that offensively, but he was super old, comes walking in and he was like, "Who's in charge around here?" And I'm like, me. I'm the shortest person out of all these people who are standing here. And he's like, "I need to talk to who's in charge. I had the worst experience when I came in. I hurt so bad. I'm so disgusted and disappointed." And I'm thinking like, what the? I don't even know you. I wasn't even here the day that you were here. So long story short, this man is yelling at me and my students are like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry," because they were the ones who were there when this man had come in previously. And lo and behold, the grumpiest man I've ever met, by the end of his 2 months of therapy, ended up getting our students a card that had puppies on it. On the inside, he wrote, "I'm not as mean as people think I am." And that truly goes to show that sometimes A, people aren't exactly who you expect them to be, and B, people's intentions are sometimes and many times different than their delivery. We found out later on that this man had kids who did not speak to him. I mean, can you imagine? I know that this happens like regularly, but this older man has kids who don't speak to him. He has no rides to doctor's appointments. The heat had been broken in his house for like months and months during the winter, and he just had a lot of problems. So he was basically projecting all of his discomforts and difficulties in his life onto the people who were the most vulnerable in his life, which was his outpatient therapy clinic. And you would be surprised at how often this happens to us at work, to the point where we're not even fazed by now. I'm sure anyone working with the public can sympathize with this. But an important piece of having an honest conversation is sometimes, like, a first impression, people say things and come across a certain way when in actuality their intentions are so much different. I guess an important thing to say would be not to judge a book by its cover. Another experience that I've had in my life a few times at different points, probably at least once a year or so, I have drifted from good friends who I thought would at one point be a part of my life forever. You never know. And they either inevitably leave your life for some reason, or you drift, or you have to kind of sever ties. And a few of them have gone really well, and a few of them have not. And it's the ones that have not that I learned how to actually leave a friendship in a way that mutually benefits both parties, and that leaves no words unspoken. So everything comes across. Most recently, it happened to me last year. It's more of a personal story, so I don't want to get too deep into it, but basically there was some beef that I had with this certain friend. When we patched things up and both kind of said we were sorry and repaired that, I was able to leave the friendship with the energy moved and the palate cleared, so to speak. So that felt really good, and I vowed to myself, and every opportunity given, I never want to leave a friendship ever again without saying my piece. And whether it's good, whether it's ugly, whatever it is, something that's important, I think, is saying exactly how you feel, because life is short and we don't know who's gonna be with us tomorrow and who isn't. And if you don't speak the things that are on your chest that feel heavy, like they're weighing you down, that you need to get off, that only is going to negatively affect you, not the person you wish you told that thing to. And you have to have enough respect for yourself to get off your chest what needs to be said, regardless of what the other person is going to think, regardless of the repercussions or what they may think of you after it, whether it's good or bad. If it means that much to you, you should definitely say it, because in working with the public, I have talked to a lot of people about a lot of different things. And one of the things that many of them bring up is regrets in their life. Things they wish they said and people they wish they would have encountered or left things better with. And that's the kind of thing that you think about at the end. So right now, whether you're hating on someone else because of their race, their religion, their political views, what they said to you, what they did to you, how bad it was, get out there what needs to be said in a kind way, because, you know, not everything that we think needs to be said. But our differences and the things that make us unique shouldn't be the things that we judge others for. And so you may not think of it as a big deal now, but in the long run, in the end, at the end of our lives, what are you gonna remember? What are you gonna think about? It's gonna be those things that you did not say that you wish you did, and those friendships that you let go to waste, when in actuality, it was over something so minor and so stupid. So I know it's hard to think like that, and nobody really wants to think about what our lives are gonna be like in 80 years or however long you have left. But I encourage you to think in the long run and have the conversation. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time, your subscription to my channel, which is completely free, by the way. And I'd love to hear more from you on my social medias, which are linked below. I love engaging and having conversations with you guys, so I'd love to hear an experience that you had in your own lives of having a difficult or uncomfortable conversation.